Hey everyone, this is Ole Sharanki from Laddering Your Success, and you're listening to the LYS Podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome to another installment of Edu-Steps Live here at the SAID Institute located in Houston, Texas. We are super excited because we've been working on getting this done for a long time. We have a Houston hero, a local Houstonian who's done so much for the city and for people. And so she has a very busy schedule. So we're really excited to get into this episode. So again, shout out to Debo, shout out to Sid, the whole entire family for helping make this a reality, being able to bring the local heroes and sheroes to you through the internet and through technology. So without further ado, Olay's going to get into her phenomenal background and bio, and then we're going to get this conversation started.
Folks, Tiffany Thomas is the city council member for District F in Houston, Texas, serving her second term since 2019. Thomas chairs the Housing Committee, focusing on housing affordability and veteran affairs, and has implemented significant initiatives like a COVID-19 rent relief program that provided over $200 million in assistance. Additionally, she is an assistant professor of community development at Prairie View A&M University. Thomas has implemented several initiatives for youth engagement in District F, including civic engagement workshops, organized to encourage youth participation in local governance, Hire Houston Youth Program, facilitated summer internships for local youth, providing valuable work experience and community involvement. Back to school events, she's hosted backpack giveaways and educational programs to support students' academic success. Most importantly, she is a fellow alumni of the greatest high school, LYS High School.
Mighty Rams.
Yes. It is our wonderful honor to host and have Councilwoman Tiffany Thomas here with us. Thank you so much.
Hello. Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. Glad we made it happen, a reality.
Awesome. So thank you so much for being here today. We want to just kick everything off with this. What was your educational journey like? Like some people, they think about like when somebody's well accomplished, that they've just been brilliant and they've been blessed since day one.
Sure.
But we know that you got it out the mud.
I did.
So tell us where, when the rain started hitting the dirt and it became muddy.
Yeah.
Tell us about that background. Like, where'd you go to middle school?
Great question. You're right. I think a lot of people do have that perception that, clearly if you ascend to a certain place, you had private education or you were a stellar student and all of these things, public schools. I am a product of public schools. I had the pleasure of serving as a trustee of LYS ISD. My brother still teaches at Ollie Middle School. Ollywood is in the house. Yeah. And so all of my family, we all were, came out of a public school system. And so for me, I went to AMS, A-Leaf Middle School. And for me, that's really where my service journey started. I had a 7th grade and 8th grade teacher, Mrs. Cuellar, and we had to do mock trial. And I think I was the defense attorney. Okay. Or something. They assign you roles. Yeah. And very active in student council. And like many of my peers at the time, we were latchkey kids. Both of my parents worked. Yeah. You had a key, get in the house, do your homework, watch Jerry Springer, put the chicken out, thaw the meat out, pull that trash, make my bed, all of those things. And so for a lot of my time, I was left to my own creativity. And so student council and these things was just a way for me to stay engaged because, go home for what? So and for my parents' peace of mind, they knew I was at school. So they were very supportive of all of those things, even when they didn't understand, like she over there doing something. Yeah. And that's really where my service journey started. I had the responsibility of going to class to tell all the 8th graders, like, it's pep rally time and this is what we're gonna need from you and wear your shirts. Yeah. Like that was my job. Yeah. And so it really was prophetic in the sense of I was going to classroom, but now I'm going to community, to neighborhood, to different stakeholder groups doing the same thing.
Yeah. So how did that transition from AMS and middle school to high school to college work? Was it like, hey, I know exactly what I want to do. I've been doing this classroom to classroom. I'm going to go community. Or was it something where it was like, hey, I'm kind of fuzzy on this, or to kind of tell us?
Not at all. I think me, like any other 15 or 14-year-old, hazy, don't have a clue about what's going on. And, I remember some of my peers in high school, they had very clear visions about who they wanted to be, and they're going to be this. And in their yearbook, they would say, I'm going to be a U.S. Senator. I'm like, what is going on? Like, I just did not have that light bulb at the time. So for me, I was doing what I was comfortable with was in doing, and I joined student council then. Also, ROTC at LSIC was like my thing, and if I have any regrets, I don't have any regrets, but if I have any regrets, it's not going to the service. Oh, for sure. Like, my personality is, I know, but I would have been like a 4-star general. Like I would have been, like.
I did 10 years, so I'm like,
oh yeah, I would have easily been in DC running things, easy. So I thought, at the time you can select ROT as a substitute for PE. And so I was like, Mama, I don't want to do PE. I'm not doing this running thing. Can you sign this form? So she signed it, but little did I know that I had to do PE in the C building. I was like, what is this? And so at the time at LSIC, TX 947, the junior RT had just started. So Hastings was the first, I think LSIC was the second. Hastings had Marines, Air Force came to LSIC, and so I was the second class. So it was only like maybe 30 students of us. And the Navy Blues, we wore them every Tuesday. Wow. I still have my pins. I have all of it. We should have turned it in, but I did not. And I remember my Master Sergeant, Benjamin McAdams, and he said it was a fire drill, and I remember sitting on the hill at the corner of Derry Ashford and High Star waiting for the fire drill, and he said, "Hey, what you doing this summer? You want to go to a summer camp?" And I'm like, "Well, okay, what is that?" And he was like, just gonna teach y'all some leadership. And I'm like, okay. Little did I know that it was boot camp.
Oh, wow.
It was boot camp. They shipped us off to Richmond. They had us running a mile every morning. Okay. I didn't even know the Lord then. I said, Lord, if you get me through this. I mean, they had us, all the girls were taking showers together, all the boys. We were at Lamar Consolidated. I remember it. We were there for like a week or 2 weeks in the summer. And we were learning drills. They had us doing like the test. They had us doing all of that, going through classes. And so from that, I was promoted to major. When I came back, they promoted me to major, and I was over the uniforms. So I did all the closet, all the supplies, supply chain, all of that. So they extended leadership to me, extended trust. I learned how to get organized because I had to do inventory. I had to know the difference between whose ribbon was what and what this meant and all of that. And I remember I would walk into a classroom and like the students would have to like come to attention. Come to attention. Indoors. Yeah. And I was like, look at this. And I loved it. And so I was student commander, and my intention was to go to the Air Force, go to OTC, come out a second lieutenant. Wow. Start my career. Here comes 9/11, and my daddy was like, "No, you can't go." Okay. And so in high school, really set the foundation for college. So in college, I was just very active in a lot of student organizations. Okay. So that continued to grow, and I think more so I think I got clear about my gifts and skills then. Yeah. I was just doing because I liked it. But then it was like, oh no, you really are a mass communicator. People on college come to you and they're like, hey, I want to get involved. Like people would come to me and say, what do I need to do? And I had an internship. I wanted to be a press secretary for Spike Lee. Okay. So that did not happen. So the first book my father gave me was the autobiography of Malcolm X. And I was like 14 and I wrote my freshman paper on that. And that was the same year the movie came out. And it was the first 3-hour movie. And I remember because it had an intermission. And I remember we went as a family on Thanksgiving Day and we went to go get some candy and come back. There was an intermission. And so I was just fascinated with 40 Acres and a Mule and the type of Black cinema and Black story he told. And so I wanted to do PR for Spike Lee. And in my internship, I would call every day. And my publisher, when I was interning at a newspaper in college, she was like, you don't really have an interest in writing a lot, but you do well, like engaging go get these ads for this community event. And I was like, okay, I could do that. And I did it. The paper hosted a huge back to school community day, and I went and got all the ads. So I was pitching the purpose, different groups, cultural acts, families, and it went off without a hitch. And that's probably the first indication of like, I think I kind of know what I'm doing, or at least people listening to me. I don't know why, but at least that was probably the first indication is when I was interning. And then the second was I was chair of our NAACP student chapter at Sam Houston State, and I was chair of Gospel Explosion. And every year we would do Gospel Explosion, and I wanted it to be different. And I brought in a minister and actually wanted there to be, like a call, like an altar call. I wanted it not to just be, like I wanted there to be some type of, because when you have all these people in a room, there must be an ask. We must take advantage of the moment. And, in the past, we would just have acts, So if you used to praise dance at your church, you can come on and get on stage. And I wanted a little bit more orchestrated, more intention. And it was packed. It was like, it was full. It was something to talk about. So I think that's probably when I first paid attention to my giftings and callings with people. It was in college.
So it sounds really interesting because, we have this methodology we've come up with called being, knowing, doing. So the being is about character, values, and principles. The knowing is about what resources are available and how you use them. And the doing is having a plan, having a process, and executing. And it seems like, whether it's through providence, whether it's through, I don't believe in happenstance.
Right.
Everything just kind of weaved itself together to kind of make you the woman you are today.
Sure.
And so can you tell us about like that I guess decisive moment of like going into education and also your career where it was like, hey, I got these skills. How this is the career that it fits into?
Sure. So my freshman year, my major was computer science. So the first class I had to take was C++.
Okay.
And I'm like, and I only did that because my daddy was like, that's where the money's at, it's computers. Okay, and my older cousin, she had went to Prairie View and was a computer engineer and got a good job at Raytheon, and everyone was like, oh my God. So he was like, that's where the money is. And then what is going on? And after like begging and negotiating a D with my professor, I was like, if you get me out of this class, I'm gonna really go find my real major because this ain't it. Like, this is, help me out. And he was like, fine. And so I went to my associate dean and I was like, listen, she was like, well, let's look at your SAT scores. Because I was like, listen, this computer science business, I don't know what's going on. I'm spending more time talking to the people in the class than actually
off duty.
I'm off duty. I'm off the script. I'm like, what's going on? And and I should have been programming. She was like, well, your SATs, you're a really strong writer. You're a really strong communicator. Like, let's look at what's going on in the School of Communications. And I had a public speaking course, like Public Speaking 101. And I was thriving in all of my comms courses. And I did my persuasive speech was like, why be baptized or something like that? It was crazy. I don't know. No, but it was just like all of the things, right? And so at the time I was teaching third grade Bible in Huntsville at some side church that I was going to. And I was like, well, I could teach this, so let me just do this and make it. And it was like, I remember that moment like it was crystal clear. And in that moment, it was like, this is what you're going to do for me. Like, so I saw myself in the future of like with people. I didn't know like the form and like where it was, but I saw it and I was like, got it. So like that was like the first, like, okay, I've been here before. Got it. And so it just, each experience really sharpened what that image was. It sharpened it over time. And I just think that, sometimes we could be a little bit too eager if we're just searching for that image. We forget all of the things that must take place before. And so I was totally okay about what's happening in between. Because when I first saw that image of myself, I was like, whoo, I'm supposed to do that? Like, what? overwhelmed. So I always tell people, be careful about what you ask for. Like, be careful for the fame. Be careful about what that, because there's a certain processing that must happen, integrity-wise, character-wise, because like your giftings, listen, the class clown is going to be funny no matter where they at, right? But it's your gift will take you whatever, but your character keeps you there. It keeps you there. And so if you don't master that, you may be the best mathematician, the best whoever, the best athlete on the field in high school, but your character's flawed. Your integrity is not mature. And so when things come, you're going to fold like a chair. So for me, that was like the first inclination of like, okay, there's something to this. And then through service, because faith without works is dead, I just continued to serve. I graduate, I joined the Urban League, Young Professionals. I was comfortable serving. And like I knew I needed to be in a place where I was serving people in community. And then my giftings and experiences I just was exposed to new information and new opportunity, coaching and feedback from myself. Having the ability to, I like to say, lead when when you could fail and not hurt anybody, and make mistakes, or it costs you a paycheck. I could stumble and have someone pull me back, and where it doesn't shut down a whole operation 100%. When no one really knows your name. So I had that type of benefit of, and just as a young professional, not having the opportunities to lead in my professional space. The service organizations gave me that opportunity to mature my skill set. So if I didn't have skills around marketing or databases, I would lean into that in service organizations to learn. That was my professional development. So then I could actually leverage that for something I wanted to do. But I never thought that public service in this way was assigned to me, for sure. But I've always had teachers. I've always had principals along the way to say, hey, you want to do this thing? Hey, you want to? And I would say, okay, with limited information, because I believe if they told me everything, I'd probably be like, no, I don't want to do it. But I've always had teachers along the way, and many of them I'm in relationship today with them. For sure.
Powerful thing I heard when you kept talking about seeing all the things. And also, I think the thing that really exemplified in her story, in your story. So I just love hearing that.
Hey, LYS fam. It's Ole once again. These days, many families are busy, but want personalized attention. We at Laddering Your Success understand this dilemma and have created a unique approach to help guide you and your child with personal development tools to build a life of purpose. This intimate approach is helpful for those parents that feel the need to have a focused heart-to-heart conversation deciding on the next steps after high school. We provide individual post-secondary planning, virtual customized college and career counseling, and scholarship guidance and planning. Our one-on-one sessions are tailored to each individual student to maximize their potential in the post-secondary realm. With our guidance, your child will be able to make their dreams a reality. Don't wait. Simply go to lys.com/parents to get your copy today. Now let's get back to business on this podcast.
So let's continue on that track. Like, you're working with Urban League, you're doing work with young professionals, you're out there in the community. What are the seeds that were planted before? What are some of the things that start happening that start to navigate you towards?
Sure. I believe, other people perceive us differently than we perceive ourselves. And so I knew I was gregarious and I knew those things, and I'm, an extrovert, but I wasn't necessarily tapped into how that was showing up for other people. And I remember telling my daddy, especially when I changed my major from computer science to communications. And I said, Daddy, I didn't have a vision. The Lord done told me. He said, what, you gonna be a weather girl? Like, what is going on? Communicate, cause in his world, what? Cause that's a different generation. You get that one job, that paying job, and you stay there. And I was like, no. And so that's as an undergrad. Fast forward, I'm a young professional, and by this time, I have a network, and my name idea is growing with people my father respects. So there was a gala I was supposed to go to, and I couldn't because I had a training. And I said, well, the Urban League was hosting it for the Black Chamber. And I forget who the honoree was, but I said, can my dad go? You know, he would like to go. So he goes. And when I come back from Ohio, he's like, he couldn't stop talking about it for like 2 weeks. And how people he respected were like, you're her dad? Oh, wow. She has so much energy. She's this. Oh, wow. Great. You did a great job. And I'm like, you take credit now. And I think that was the first time he probably was like, oh, so she is she's not just going to happy hours. I think he thought I was going to hanging out, running my mouth. Long way from C++. And so I think, but also that was a new awareness for me of like, oh, that's how people see me. I didn't realize that. So I never really heard that type of feedback. So it was affirming that not just my peers, but a different generation of people that have done work in public service and social justice were like, oh yeah, great job, Dad. You got a good one. And so that was encouraging, because sometimes you can be so close to the things that you're doing, they can be routine to you. Because it's a gift. So it's not, there's not too much.
You don't feel like you're working at it.
It's a gift. Until you come out of it. And then people are like, no. And so that was affirming for me. And I think for the school board, there was a new superintendent. His name was H.D. Chambers. So this is around 2010 or 11. And at that time, just even in the media, anytime you heard A-Leaf, it was just who got shot and who got robbed and who got stabbed. That's SWAT, right? And so he created this community advisory board to really reverse that. And the idea was, if we can get former students, parents, business owners in the room, we'll talk to them about our budget. We'll talk to them about our outcomes. So then we have extensions of the truth in community, right? Because your board can't do it all, whatever. And I went to a community forum. The super neighborhood was hosting like a city council forum for elections. He says, hey, I heard about you. I'm starting this, would love to have you on there. And I was like, okay, I live in sure. Had no idea that would set me up for running for school board. So at the same time, maybe like 2 years later, Gary Owens decides to not run for re-election, position 7. And he wanted to be a grandfather. And 2 school board members came to me and say, hey, I think you should run for this position. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, no. And they were like, no. And the superintendent was like, no, I think you will be good. Like, you're from the community, you serve already in the greater Houston area. You know what we do, you understand our budget. And I remember emailing some friends around midnight, and they was like, yeah, like, let's go. And I didn't realize until then I would have that type of confidence from my peers. And so we ran in 2013, so over 10 years ago, which was crazy, because in a good way, because it was like, I felt as if people I went to school with and my peers and people who have an affinity for the neighborhood felt like they have one of their own. And so my down ballot was high, which means people literally skipped mayor and just went straight. Wow. And when we did the draw, I was the last person on the ballot. And people literally skipped and went like, where is she? And voted for me and left. Because they had to certify your votes. And so that really was like, the streets really are watching. People really are paying attention. And that was a really good time. But yeah, I think those were a couple of moments where it was like, I might be onto something, And that was a huge stretch for me, because I wasn't Tiffany with the Urban League or Tiffany the Delta or Tiffany from whatever. It was like, vote for Tiffany Thomas, my name, my brand. So I was really testing all the seeds that had been planted. It was time for just grow time. Like, let's see what you yield from all of that work. And it was successful. And we did a lot of good work together.
So from that, you did a lot of obviously a lot of work with A&M ISD. What are some of the things that, from an educational standpoint, locally, regionally, from the city standpoint, the state standpoint,
sure,
like the average parent or student isn't aware?
Sure. So during that time at the state level, we were lobbying support for House Bill 5. House Bill 5 really brought back career readiness into schools. When I was at LSIC in the C building, you had the mechanic shop.
Absolutely.
Right, and they can go up there and do all of that. And then there was a period of time where they took that out because they wanted to track for everything was college, AP classes. Yeah. And I was AP student. Like, you know, you're college tracked, but the reality is that the workforce has demands that it doesn't necessarily require a college degree. But what career readiness does, it doesn't exclude college as a pathway. It just prepares you for whatever you choose. You're going to be competent and competitive in whatever industry. So House Bill 5 at the state level really shaped how we transformed our curriculum, which had us pointing to a bond. So in 2015, it was like a $350 million bond where we had a career and technology center, the Marshall Center right off of Old West Town behind Walmart. It used to be a golf course across from the West Houston Hospital. My name's on that building. I was vice chair of the board at the time. And so we successfully passed that bond. And what that center does, it has a veterinarian clinic. It has the mechanic shop, like state of the art. And we went to Toyota Sterling McCall on I-10 to look at how they did their bay. And we designed it with industry in mind. So all the students who are in that program, they take care of the fleet for the school district. So hands-on. They take care of the oil changes, all of that for the school district. And during the pandemic, when we had the highest incidences of catalytic converter thefts, we was running them through the career center. Those students were doing them. Yeah. So it was me, HPD, my office, some other partners, and we had cars wrapped all around. And so that just tells the beautiful story. And I remember people fighting that bond. Not thinking that it was going to be a good investment. And it's worthwhile, and it continues to yield from technology, culinary, high skill, high wage industry tracks. They're still learning. They're still in school. Many of them go to college, but they also have a skill. Which forces critical thinking. So I was deeply involved in that. Also, the pre-K centers that we have in the district, on the early conversation of, we were just working through the data and the disparity of what our families are needing around early education. And we know what the third grade reading level indicates in the state. So, so all of those things were happening. And for me, I was grateful to bring that conversation to other communities that was not aware, bringing it to an urban league or NAACP, bringing it into these neighborhoods, like, y'all need to know. And a lot of Black families and even other minority families were like, well, you forcing my kid not to go to college. No, that's not at all. We want Jamal to have all the options. And Jamal may go and do this mechanic program and go to Prairie View and be a mechanical engineer because he went through this program. He's like, okay, I know how this happens. And now he can go get that degree and then own his business.
Yeah. You know, you bring up such a vital point because, you know, part of when we got Laddering and Success started, and the whole point of it being the ladder is like, it's a career ladder. And I know historically, you know, particularly for minorities, it's been, you're not good enough to go to college. So they would pigeonhole you into these careers where it's like, you know, again, more technical, you know, labor intensive. And so, you know, again, data coming up was like, okay, let's get everybody to go to college. And so it's just like swayed from one side to another to where now a lot of minority students almost don't even know what to do. It's like, I can't quite afford college. Or I perceive I can't afford college. Let me put it that way. And then I don't want to be covered in oil every day, you know. And so now there's kind of just this confusion there. So I'm so glad you have done tangible work to bring solutions to the community. So if you could kind of tell us, like, okay, because this is your last term.
Yes.
This is your last term. And so based off of all that you've done, like, hey, this is the part I'm going to do in this last term. And this is what I hope to see when it's all said and done in terms of your office official capacity.
So Yeah, my last 4 years, as I said, at the opening or during my inauguration in Chambers, he said my last 4 will be the best 4, and I'm committed to that. And so, a lot of times people ask me, "Are you mentoring someone else?"
100%.
Right? And so I believe that I have provided the playbook to everything that I've done, and I've really mentored a community and not just one. So now, regardless of who's in the seat, these people have an expectation because they was like, that lady used to pass out water. That lady had, right? Like they now know she fixed these streets. So regardless of who's in the seat, the community knows the standard that they should have. And so it's more about the community currency, the community information that's been freely, I haven't gatekept that. Because I think sometimes we define mentorship as like there's just one airpan, there's one.
100%.
And no, it's all of us, because I can't do all of this by myself. I have community partners. If I didn't have Agape Christian Fellowship, if I didn't have Church Without Walls Eldridge, if I didn't have WHAM, and that's like work and relationship building over time, where they trusted that when I showed up, it was legit. Right? So, not just a photo op. Like I'm out there too. It's like when I say I'm here too, and they could count on that. So I think that is what I would want the community to remember, is that they have a member who was literally representing them with fidelity, because we just have a history in District F of people using our seat, this seat, for their own political things. And not to say it's not, you shouldn't have ambition, be ambitious and
100%.
have that. But, like Nikki Giovanni told James Baldwin, lie to me. If that's the case, lie to me. At least do me something. You know what I mean? Lie to me. Make me feel good in the process. Lie to me. And so in the past, that hasn't been the case. People have just been flat out, have taken from us. And so a part of my dogged nature is to make sure, right now I have 16 infrastructure projects going on at the same time. Richmond, $4 million is gutted up. We're going to move in that way because we've had leadership that failed to invest in us over decades. So I got to close that gap so we can start experiencing the same quality of life as other neighborhoods. So I want the community to see that and see a standard and say oh, no. And then they got to know, you got to come after that. So if you're ready to come after me, you got to do that work. So you may not be able to do snow angels in the snow.
You have done. One thing I love is, what's that saying they say, I wasn't born in Texas, but I got here as soon as I could. I wasn't born in Aileen, but I got here as soon as I could. Hello. It's so funny. I remember when I ended up coming back and we both worked for the district. I was teaching at MATA. And I remember when I was teaching, I saw your billboard.
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah. It's going down. Right.
I ended up doing Complete Communities University.
Yeah.
And then I also found out through that Isaac, the staff did it. And he's just an amazing man, wonderful person. And I remember actually the first time I saw you was at the Houston Community College. And I tried to always have the pen on because I really appreciated the access and what they opened our eyes to.
Yeah.
And I remember when I saw you, I was like, hey. Because you don't realize, like you said, you planted those seeds in so many areas. And so what happens is you just see a random root.
Right.
And I was one of the roots. He's one of the roots. And it's just like, hey.
Yeah.
And I think that, to your point, is the greatest thing you can get. It's truly exemplifies servant leadership.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, to me, that's the what reflects back to me is when I see the A-Leaf Neighborhood Center completely full with no parking, when I know we've doubled the parking there and you can't get in. When that's what it's it's working, right? When we opened the neighborhood center, people were like, is this really happening? What's really going on? Especially when we closed the old library. And we closed it on Halloween of 20, and we opened the A-Leaf Neighborhood Center on January 14, 2023. And I remember that because it was Phi Beta Sigma's Founders Day, the 14th, and I had a blue dress on. That's how I remember. But I wore blue for Elsie, okay? So, and I remember showing up, and it was like homecoming. It was like a Labor Day classic. And everybody, like everyone from the city was like, we have never seen an opening. And I'm like, I told you, these people have been waiting for this for decades. And I think when they put their eyes on the people, and no, everyone didn't show up to community meetings. And no, everyone didn't participate in that. And no, everyone didn't do the survey, but they knew it was coming. And they knew that this was for them. That was probably one of the most like heartwarming days. But like to your point about your story of like, I showed up, I signed up, I saw, and then the instinct, your own instinct to, you know, wonder what's on the other side of that. Like what, right? If I sign up, what experience could this mean for me? Is also very heartwarming because you never know. Like we put all types of stuff in newsletters, on social media, and you just never know. And then, you know, you get a letter in the mail or you know, hear these types of remarks and you're like, oh, it is working. Okay, it's not in vain.
Well,
yeah.
You do a great job with the
Thank you.
newsletters. You got projects.
You
got projects here.
Yeah.
Here's a picture of trash.
Stop doing that, y'all. Yeah.
I wanted to just pose this question to you.
Sure.
Of course, we recently president inaugurated, and there are a lot of maybe feeling a little down and maybe happy.
Sure.
What are some words of advice? What are some things that you can tell us?
Sure. I'm nervous too. I mean, just the swiftness of reverse, like it's mind blowing. Like what is going on?
It's like, whoa,
yeah.
you blew me up.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Lie to me. Like you got to talk to me. Like it's just, and you know, and technically, you know, all those executive orders without Congress, I think technically like that's illegal, but that's nothing. I think when I look at District F, Vice President Harris barely carried F. But I think also this is an opportunity for us to look at just our own civic engagement and getting out the vote. And then what is the disconnect between people who are registered who do not go to vote? And so we have to have those real hard conversations and communicate in and out of season. We can't wait until the deadline to get a voter ID to start talking about, or when the sample ballot comes out to say, do you know who your candidates are? Like, no. That's why I go to any meeting. It may have 3 people there. I'm going to show up. I'm going to be there. Yes, because that's a part of the civic engagement cycle. And we have not done a good job of the 360 of that cycle. And so while many of those of us that voted for a different option, another way, I think hopefully this quiet time, however disenchanted we may be, we're also thinking about how we reemerge more centered on us. I think they talk about the coalition that the Trump administration built and that campaign and all of that. I think that we can create our own coalition. And our coalition includes, right, like who are our Black disabled, our Black veterans, our Black labor, our Black this, throughout the diaspora, who do we need to bring in? And then how do we have a conversation with us about what we want around housing, around education outcomes, around these types of things, healthcare, all of these things. And we have not done that. And I think we have an opportunity to do it. It's not solely Black elected officials' jobs to do that. 100%. And a lot of times that burden is like, what are y'all gonna do? Well, what are you gonna do?
I gotta work with other people
too.
And I gotta work with your neighbor.
And before I was elected, I was doing this work. And so, you know, it's available to you too. 100%. And a lot of times people don't realize that we need feedback from community about like, hey, well, tell me what you're working on. What are you hearing? Because we're so close to things. And we have to work with everybody at times to get things done. So, I mean, for those of us that are disenchanted, you know, take that disenchantment and then let's focus that on real coalition building for us. And that's why, at least on the West Side, I've been really intentional about these, you know, even the vulnerable, the homeless population, putting a name to him. Where are you? So we can count you in that number and then represent you and make sure you have the resource. And I think it goes back to, you know, just community investment. I don't necessarily have to all the time. I surmise that even when I'm not in this position, I probably will still be doing that. And we'll be able to call community partners to say, hey, there's a freeze. let's do this, let's get organized, and that could be funded through community because we have a clear agenda about our commitments. And I really think this is an opportunity. It's going to be a bumpy ride. Yeah. This is not going to be an easy 4 years for us, and especially around immigration in the African diaspora, we're often lost in that. 100%. We have a strong, of course, West African, but Haitian population, and we're not included. Yeah. And we have to start talking about that because a lot of people and their parents are afraid of what that means for them.
Man, we could talk with you all day because number one, your communication ability is just top notch. You know what I'm saying? Obama ain't got
please.
But definitely we have to close out, unfortunately.
Sure.
But if you, let's say for example, we're your family out there, and you got little cousins, nieces, nephews, brothers, sisters, and you're saying, hey, I need you to take this particular action around either education or around politics. What would that be? What would you tell us as your own family? Like, this is the best action step that you could take.
I kind of see that differently. So I think the best action is, instead of like your passion, which I think people should be passionate about things, I also think people should figure out what pisses them off. Because if you know what pisses you off, oftentimes that drives you further, down the bunny hole than what your passion is. Because sometimes it's a gifting. It happens. We don't have to produce. But what pisses you off, you get serious and start learning about that and, figuring out how to make this thing work. And if we start figuring out what pisses us off, then we will find allies, we will find collaborators, we will find partners that have vision alignment in making sure, housing affordability is available, healthcare is available. But I think we've been focusing on our passions for way too long, which can sometimes be very individualistic. And I think people need to ask themselves, especially in this culture, what am I doing for others? Like, what am I, right, everyone's on the internet and showing all the things that they've had. We've consumed so many things and we have all of these things. But what are we doing for other people? Yeah. And if you can't find yourself in the middle of that service, find yourself there. Yeah.
From what I take from that is have a righteous indignation and correct it.
Correct.
And those are the two actions.
Yeah.
You just say, hey, listen, that there's something that pisses you off, that drives you to take some action, and don't be violent in the negative sense.
Right.
Be violent positively.
Correct.
It's like getting in the weight room.
Correct.
And pushing hard on that last set, that last rep to get the outcome that you want.
Absolutely.
So, look, y'all heard it here on Edu-Steps. I know you hit the subscribe button right now. I know you hit the subscribe button and the follow button. Ole, you got anything else before we close out?
Shout out A&M Votes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, A&M Votes.
Absolutely.
And y'all look, West Side, the best side.
You already know.
As it is.
You already know.
Thank you so much for joining us. Again, shout out Sid and the whole entire family here. Look, like we always say, there are legitimate excuses for not going to college. There's no excuse for not getting an education.
That's right.
Listen, I know that there are 1,000 people that need to hear this. So hit the share button, okay? Let's help promote Councilman Thomas and all of her great, phenomenal work. And we're going to see you on the next episode.